My parents stole my wedding dress for my sister's wedding and altered it without my permission. Now they're in debt and blaming me. So for context, I, 35 female, got married almost a decade ago and have been with my husband ever since. The dress that I wore for my wedding had been designed and created by one of my friends who runs her own label now and is a pretty big deal in the industry. And my dress was one of the first that she customized and created for me. So not only does it have a lot of monetary value, it holds a lot of meaning to me as well sentimentally. Now my sister got married a few weeks ago and that's when I found out that she took my dress and completely ruined it by altering it to fit her and making other changes that I didn't approve of. My sister, 29 female, and I are not really close, so if she'd asked me then I would not have let her borrow my dress. Because she is a lot smaller than me and her taste is very different from mine, she would want to alter the dress and I wouldn't allow it. Which is probably why my parents had to resort to stealing it for her and then hiding that from me. I don't know exactly when they took it because my parents don't come over often. I guess it must have been one of those times when I asked my mother to babysit and she took that opportunity to steal my wedding dress from the attic. She had been pretty happy to come over and watch my daughter a couple of months ago, which she usually isn't and I have to call the sitter. So I guess it must have been that time. They kept that a secret from me and I usually don't really go to the attic. Even when I do, I don't exactly consciously look for my wedding dress, so that's how I never noticed. Months passed and a couple of weeks ago, I finally attended Mandy's wedding. I wasn't part of the bridal party, I was just another regular guest because as I said, we are not friends. So I saw her for the first time when she was walking down the aisle and my jaw almost dropped because he was wearing my dress. But it had been altered beyond recognition and while it looked good on her, it was just totally ruined for me. I didn't say anything but my husband and I knew that this was my wedding dress that she was wearing. After the ceremony, I cornered her and my parents to confront them about the dress. And my mother didn't even deny it. She told me that it was my dress and she had borrowed it a couple of months ago while I was not at home. She knew that if she asked me then I would make a whole thing out of it and would not let her borrow the dress, but my sister really wanted it and it was her wedding, so it was hard to say no to her. I couldn't believe that she was just confessing to it, as if it was no big deal and my sister was going along with it. My sister then excused herself after a while to greet the other guests and my parents told me not to overreact and make this day all about myself when it really wasn't. So I told both of them to go to hell and stormed out of the wedding. I was extremely upset the entire day because the dress meant a lot to me and I couldn't believe that my sister had ruined it. My sister always got whatever she wanted and it just seemed incredibly unfair to me that even my wedding dress was now somehow hers. I couldn't help but keep crying the entire day and my husband tried his best to console me and just be there for me. But the next day, he told me that I needed to toughen up and take my parents to court because I could not let them get away with this. My friend who had made the dress for me was a pretty big deal and not only did the dress have a lot of sentimental value but it held a lot of monetary value as well, if we were to sell it. Even though my friend made the dress for me at a very low cost because of our relationship, it didn't matter because it was mine. My sister had no claims on it and my parents definitely had no right to take it away from me to give it to her. It had always been this way, right from when we were kids. My sister always wanted whatever I had and I was expected to just give it up for her because I was the older one. Apparently, my parents believed that my sister idolized me, which is why she always had an eye on what I had. Maybe I could buy that theory when I was really little and my sister was just a toddler, but that behavior of hers didn't change even as we grew up. She would also constantly steal my clothes and my shoes because she believed that they looked better on her than it did on me in our teens, which ended only because I moved out. But after that, she would flirt with my boyfriends when I'd bring them home despite the age gap when she was in college and I was working. And my parents would just laugh it off because they thought it was funny. That's how growing up with my sister was and I dealt with this for years. But I don't think it was fair to me then and it's still not fair to me now. My parents never said anything about her behavior because she was younger and kept enabling her. And now she has grown up to be literally the most selfish person I know, all thanks to our parents. But the thing with the wedding dress was just too ridiculous for me to let go of and move on from, so I decided that I would take them to court. My husband even put me in touch with a lawyer. I did try to give them a chance to at least apologize to me and pay me back before I went ahead and filed a petition against them, but they didn't seem to care. I texted all of the same things: I'm going to file a lawsuit against you guys and it won't be pretty. You still have a chance to apologize for stealing and pay me back for the damage done to my dress, but if you don't then you'll be forcing my hand here. My parents said that I was making a big deal out of this and I needed to get over myself because it just wasn't that deep. They told me that it was just a wedding dress and it wasn't like I was going to wear it ever again, so it didn't matter. But it did matter, they just didn't care enough about me to think that it might have. My sister, on the other hand, decided to insult me and told me that she looked way better in the dress than I did on my wedding day. So I should be glad that I got the opportunity to contribute to something so beautiful in my own little way, instead of throwing a hissy fit over it. Needless to say, that message convinced me that I was doing the right thing and I went ahead with the petition. Those texts were little all the proof that I needed because it was basically an admission of guilt, that they had indeed stolen my dress and then altered it. They didn't even try to deny it. It was pretty foolish of them, but their stupidity played a huge role in my win. We met with our lawyers a couple of times, but they couldn't negotiate with me because I clearly had the upper hand here. And their messages just proved that they had indeed stolen my wedding dress and then altered it against my will, so now they had to pay me back. They just didn't have any other choice, especially since I had given them the chance to avoid going to court at all, but they'd rejected it. I guess they thought that I was bluffing and I wouldn't actually sue them. So the verdict was in my favor and they would have to pay me back. This happened 4 days ago and my husband and I were really happy because of it. While we were celebrating at home, I received a text from my father which was a screenshot of his conversation with his lawyer, who just so happened to be a friend of his as well. While they had been discussing the situation with me, they'd done their calculations and realized that my parents were now going to be in debt. Because they had already spent a lot of money on my sister's wedding and it's not exactly like they are the most financially responsible people, so they live a very carefree lifestyle and don't save much. Which is bad for them because now, they have to pay me back a significant amount. And since my mother is retired and my father is still working, but he is going to retire in a couple of months, they are in huge trouble. My father then told me that this was all my fault and I was a horrible human being for taking them to court over something so petty and stupid. He said that it was not fair for me to sue them, knowing that my sister was not financially stable and that my parents were about to retire. He called me greedy and selfish and said that I was just proving them right by being a terrible human being and an even worse daughter. I was pissed off when I saw that text because it just made me feel like a teenager all over again, begging my parents to realize that my sister was being unkind to me and to reprimand her, so that she would behave better. But just like how they would act back then, they dismissed their own mistakes and my sister's selfishness and everything was my fault. So I told them that I didn't care if they were hurt and I didn't care if they were going to be out of money soon. I said that I wished they would all go broke and end up on the streets, and maybe that would make them realize that they had screwed up by picking a fight with me. Not just this once but all throughout my life. I guess I went a little too far when I said that because my sister decided to take that screenshot and then she posted it online. She put up that post yesterday and since then my phone has been ringing off the hook with relatives calling me to tell me that what I said was extremely disrespectful and insensitive and that I needed to apologize to my parents. I know it was all of those things, but I don't think I need to apologize to them because what they did to me was way worse. They took a cherished memory of mine and then completely desecrated it. And all I did was say something a little mean to them when they were trying to argue with me and gaslight me. I don't think that the two of them are the same thing at all and I don't really feel sorry. But people keep telling me that what I said was out of line, especially because my parents are aging and my sister is still struggling to make a career for herself. So it's very harsh of me to pick on them when they are down on their luck and make a mockery out of it. So am I the a-hole for telling my parents and my sister that I hope they'd go broke and end up on the streets? Update 1. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all the comments on my post. It really means a lot to me that so many of you think that what I said was perfectly okay, haha. And a lot of you have shared similar stories, too. My heart goes out to everybody who had a story similar to mine, with one favorite sibling and having to constantly fight them for your parents' attention. I know it can't be easy, it certainly wasn't for me and still isn't. It's true, my sister certainly is the golden child of the family and I never denied it. But somewhere down the line, maybe I hope that my parents would at least treat me like their own flesh and blood somewhere. Quite evidently they will not do that, their priorities are very clear, and now so are mine. I have blocked all the relatives who took my parents' side. Because even after knowing what happened, if they still think that what I said was worse than what they did, then there is no point in arguing with them. Because it's very clear that this is coming from a place of bias and disdain and I don't need to pay any attention to their criticism of me. They love my parents and they love my sister and they don't like me, that's where this is coming from. There is nothing substantial in what they say about me, so I'm not too worried about their opinions. I got what I wanted and right now, that's all that matters to me. If they didn't want to get in trouble then they probably shouldn't have stolen my wedding dress. What did they even expect was going to happen? That I would just roll over and let them do whatever they wanted? I don't live with them anymore and I don't rely on them for anything, so I don't have to keep pleasing them like I had to in the past. Update 2. So, like I said, I blocked all my relatives but I guess people are finding new ways to bother me now. My family is getting their friends involved and people who I have never even spoken to in my entire life are now texting me, telling me to unblock everybody so they can have an adult, civilized discussion with me about the money and I can back off. I don't understand why all of them hate me so much because I have been nothing but nice to everybody in my family for years. My husband thinks that they're all jealous of me because I have a great job and a picture-perfect family, which is something none of them have. At least not both of them at the same time. And now that I think of it, he is kind of right about this. Most of my relatives are either facing financial problems or family issues, and I have been blessed to avoid both. Or maybe I'm just a good person who works hard at her job and also gives enough time to her family, which is why I don't have to face these problems. Either way, I agree with my husband's theory of my family being jealous of me, which is why they really seem to have it in for me. I was originally just fighting with my parents and my sister over this, but now somehow, everybody is involved and everybody wants to bully me and make me apologize. It just seems crazy that an entire family is ganging up against this one woman and trying to bring me down. Even though they stand nothing to gain from this, they're just doing it because they know they can. I have been blocking people who I don't know, but I'm keeping screenshots of whatever these people text me. Because if it's required, then I will take my entire family to court, because this is the sort of mental strain that nobody should be put under. I don't know what they have been telling these people or why their friends want to join in on the drama as well, but it's very clear that their intention is to get under my skin. And I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of letting that happen. So no matter what they do, I am not going to apologize or unblock anybody. My parents can suffer all they want, they brought this onto themselves and I have no sympathy to spare for them. Update 3, okay, so about 3 weeks have passed since my last update here and not much has happened after that. I just kept blocking whatever idiot texted me about this and called it a day. I wasn't too worried about what they were going to do next. It's just a bunch of old people targeting me because they have nothing better to do with their own lives, and the thought of that isn't exactly scary. But unfortunately, they have a lot of time on their hands, so they have been quite productive, I must say. I don't know who taught them to use it, but one of them actually started a change.org petition to try and get me to apologize. They're also demanding that I forgive my parents and let go of their debt because they are old and are both going to retire soon, so they need to start worrying about that. And it's really heartless of me to put them through so much, knowing fully well that they are aged and can't just get money out of nowhere at the drop of a hat. That's a real petition, and some of them have even signed it, which is just hilarious to me. I can't even believe one of them had this idea and then thought that it was great and went through with it. At this point, they're just literally making fools out of themselves, and I'm watching it all happen. I might even grab a tub of popcorn while they continue. My husband and I have been laughing about this for hours now because it's just crazy to me that they are willing to go to such lengths, knowing that I'm not going to back off. I think I made that pretty clear, and if they still don't get it, then that's on them, really. Nothing negative has happened because of their behavior yet, thankfully. It hasn't affected my friends or my work, but as soon as it does, I'm taking them to court. Until then, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it. Update 4, hi, everyone. I know the last few updates were quite lighthearted, but this is going to be a lot more serious. My family has really officially taken things too far this time. I was wrong to assume that my family was just full of no good old fools, and I had no reason to be afraid of them. Today, after my daughter came back from school, she told me that her grandparents had come by to meet her during recess and had given her a letter to deliver to me. She had no idea about the feud that was going on between my parents and me, so she was happy that she was able to talk to her grandparents after so long, but I wasn't. The letter just basically said everything that they have been telling me for weeks now, that they wanted me to apologize publicly and also renegotiate the terms of paying me back for the dress and stuff. But it also said that if I didn't agree to it, then they would continue to meet my daughter and turn her against me. And that couldn't be great for us as a family. That's what really got to me, because dragging my daughter into this is just unacceptable, and when I told my husband, he agreed that it was time to talk to our lawyer once more and file for a restarting order against my parents. We thought about filing for one against my sister as well, but so far, she has been weirdly silent. I haven't spoken to her at all in the past couple of weeks, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't think she is really involved in whatever is going on with the family. I did make our friends watch her social media presence, and they told me that she hasn't been active ever since the wedding, and the only posts that she has put up since then have been of her and her husband on their honeymoon. So she might come back from her honeymoon and try to talk to me, but until that happens, I don't really have any grounds for a restraining order against her, so I'll just have to do without it. But my parents are definitely not going to be allowed near me or my family again now. Update 5, so my parents were served yesterday, and for some reason, they didn't see it coming. It's very difficult for me to believe that they thought they could harass me for weeks relentlessly and they could just get away with it. They used a friend's phone to call me, but I hung up as soon as I realized that it was my parents calling. So they decided to text me instead hastily before I blocked the number as well. They texted me saying that we needed to talk, that it was important, and they also added that this was the last conversation that we would probably have. So they just needed one chance to talk to me for real. I probably shouldn't have, but I did reply to them. I told them that I had nothing to say to them and they shouldn't have anything to say to me either, after everything that they have put me through. So they replied to that saying that it wasn't all that bad and they really did love me, but they just got a little carried away and felt betrayed when I took them to court over a wedding dress. And that's when I realized that they still didn't get the point and they probably never will, but I decided to give it one last shot and finally told them that it wasn't just a wedding dress that I was mad about. There was so much more to it that they didn't even realize. So I explained to them about the way that they treated me and my sister differently and the fact that it hurt when they constantly acted as if I wasn't that important to them. But with the wedding dress incident, I realized that they weren't just acting. I wasn't that important to them. And out of anger, I did what I did and I have no regrets about it because it was a long time coming. They still didn't understand and kept saying that they didn't have any favorites while we were growing up, and it was crazy that I felt that way because they always treated me and my sister like equals, as far as they were concerned. After that, I realized that it was a lost cause and there was no talking to them because it was pointless to make them try and understand what I went through as a kid. They were convinced that they were the greatest parents alive, and maybe they were, but just to my sister. Not to me. So I didn't need to pretend like they were the greatest parents to me. I tried to explain to them and they didn't understand. And that was all that I could do. Update 6, so we got a restraining order against them. Yay, I guess. My family hasn't bothered to text me ever since I filed for the protective order because I think they figured out that they were not going to bully me out of this. And if they took things further, then I might create trouble for them as well. The petition that they created is also gone now, they probably took it down recently. It feels weird knowing that I might not see my parents again for a really long time, but I also feel really relieved. I'm kind of conflicted, honestly, but I'll get over it. My husband has been my rock through this whole time. He has been a pro at taking care of our daughter and taking care of me as well whenever I would feel a little too upset about things that my family was saying about me. And I am really so grateful for it. I might not have the best parents, but I definitely chose the best husband for myself. I'm sure that he's my soulmate and I can't believe I was lucky enough to find him in this lifetime.